Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. It's National Get to Know Your Customers Day, Tone. Anything you want to know about our viewers?
I'm Tony Kornheiser. Yeah. Are you choosing to watch us, or are we just on in the bar? That's what I'd like to know. Yeah.
Well, do the eyeballs count either way? If they count, I don't care if they're in a bar.
But if they're in a bar, they've never actually heard us speak. No. They have read what we have said, but they're not actually listening to us. I don't think of them as customers, though. Do you? I don't think of them as customers.
Yeah.
Welcome to PTI,
they're like
boys and
Norm
girls.
at the bar. They're customers.
Really? In today's episode, Brian Kelly roots for Notre Dame. The Celtics are in a lull, and Booger McFarland joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with the upcoming NFL weekend playoff games. Best weekend all year. The number 1 seed in the AFC, Kansas City, is at home against Houston. The number 1 seed in the NFC, Detroit, is at home against Washington. Both Houston and Washington were upset winners last week. Wilbon, which number 1 seed do you see as more vulnerable this week?
Detroit, Tony, for a couple of reasons. And I, all year have thought that if Detroit can do something other than limp to the finish line, Detroit could win the whole thing. And they've been the best team in the NFC. I know there were a couple of weeks where they had so many people like north of 25 on injured reserve that you just looked at it. You and I looked at it and said, "How you can't sustain this?" Well, they get people back. They get improvements. They got such great coaches who learned how over the course of this season to compensate with the resources they have. And there's nothing but kudos for the Lions. But I think they're still vulnerable because of those injuries and because they're playing a Washington Commanders team with Jaden Daniels. Then maybe it's his time. Maybe it just is, even though he's a rookie, even though he's playing in the place that I believe, right there with Lambeau, Kansas City, Buffalo, I believe Detroit is the toughest place, Seattle, the toughest place to play in the NFL, particularly in a playoff game. So, Tony, I just think that they're playing with house money. The Commanders have no particular pressure. You know this in civic terms. People just love them. Yeah. People are just slurping them every day. Everybody loves the Commanders. They're playing with house money. They could go in there and maybe get a lead, which they're going to need to do, and stay close enough in that game and steal it. It would be a steal. It would be an upset. But I don't see Houston doing that at all. I know they played them close recently. I don't see the Texans doing that to the Chiefs.
So my heart tells me that Washington can beat Detroit. But my heart tells me that because I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm probably sort of kind of rooting for that. But I have watched this incredible turnaround from last year, from 4-13 to 13-5 at the moment. And I have paid attention as time and time again, I think it's 5 games in a row now, Washington has won games on the last play of the game. Yeah. And I think that they are infused with magic. But when it comes to destiny, now Detroit has destiny. And Detroit is more of a darling than Washington for this reason, Mike. Washington last won 30 years ago. Detroit hasn't won in almost 70 years.
70 years.
Since 1957. Yeah. That is before the Super Bowl. That is before the merger. That is before the AFL. That is before instant replay. That is before face masks. So the destiny thing, Detroit's got that. I don't think Houston is a very good team. I think they were better last year. But they were toe-to-toe with Kansas City, I think 4 weeks ago in Kansas City.
Yeah, they did.
17-16 in the third quarter, and then Tank Dell got hurt, and they ended up losing 27-19. Here's why I say it, Mike. Kansas City, their regulars haven't played in 3 weeks. Maybe they're rusty. They win games by an average of 3.5 points. That's an incredibly small margin. So maybe Houston has a chance.
They can't let Will Anderson wreck the game because he can do that with that Houston defense and lead the way doing it. But I just think that Andy Reid and his staff, and the best quarterback in football, they'll figure out how to neutralize that, even with the problems they have at left tackle. So I'm not going to say Mahomes is going to. I'm not willing to put Will Anderson there with Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor just yet. He may prove it. I got to see it first. Now, to the college football title game and Brian Kelly backing, I say that loosely, Notre Dame. Kelly famously left the Irish for LSU in November of 21, saying, quote, "I want to be in an environment where I have the resources to win a national championship," close quote. Well, Notre Dame is now playing for that championship, and Kelly's at the crib telling CBS Sports he pulls for the Irish because we recruited some of those current players and only left because he wanted a different challenge. Please, Tony, how does Kelly's explanation sound to you?
How does it sound to me? I wish we had video on it because I'd like to see, does his nose get larger? Is it a Pinocchio situation for him? I mean, come on. Come on. When he says he wants a different challenge or another challenge, did I miss when he won the national championship at Notre Dame? Was I out of the country?
Missed it. Yeah.
Everyone knows that Brian Kelly went to LSU to win a national championship, and everyone assumes he went there because he thought there was a better chance he could do that at LSU than in Notre Dame. And why do people assume that? Because he said that. Does he think we have forgotten that? Or does he think because he did it in that contrived Southern accent that he invented that we didn't really understand the words? Come on. Come on.
I forgot that. Tony, he's such a fraud when it comes to so many public utterances. And this is not the only fraudulent thing Brian Kelly has said. I mean, Brian Kelly does these things. I guess he thinks we're too stupid to either have YouTube or videotape or remember or tape recording. I mean, really? Does he think that everybody's that stupid? He says these things. This is so fraudulent. What he's saying now is like life is too short to pay any attention to anything said, uttered by Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's a hell of a coach. He is. He's still a hell of a coach.
He is.
Even though he didn't actually win that national championship before. He is, Tony. But also when it comes to public utterances and his positioning and his credibility about things like this, a fraud. So, it's
Mike,
like, please shut up and get off the stage. Shut up.
113 and 40 in 12 years at Notre Dame. He's a
hell of a
coach.
He is.
But 1-7 against top 5 teams. That's that problem that the Penn State coach, James Franklin, has as well. Whereas the coach at Notre Dame now, 33-9 in his 3 years there, and 3-2 against top 5 teams. And Mike, it's got to frost Brian Kelly's hide. Yeah, that Notre Dame is in a position to win the national championship, and he just got out of the Texas Bowl. Let's move to the Boston Celtics, who were beaten last night by the lowly Toronto Raptors. Came into the game 9-31. The Celtics are now 7-7 in their last 14 games after a 21-5 start. Boston's Kristaps Porzingis called his team's effort last night, quote, weak. Porzingis said, quote, we played with no spirit, no personality, unquote. Will Bonner, the Celtics' recent struggles, a big deal, a little deal, or no deal at all?
No deal. They don't even reach the level of no deal. We talk about this every year. And you and I have talked about it for 20 years before PTI ever aired. There's a time between about January 15th and the All-Star game where the best teams get bored. And even the great teams, and I don't have their specific night-by-night records in front of me, but the only 2 teams that really didn't get bored to any great extent were the Warriors, who won whatever it was, 73 games, I guess, and the Bulls, who won 72. And they managed to basically avoid that malaise. But these dog days, the dog days of the NBA season, are as common as the sunrise. And they're going to happen. They're not going to happen to OKC, because OKC didn't win a championship and can't afford to get bored. They're not going to happen to Cleveland, because Cleveland didn't just win a championship and can afford to get bored. But the Celtics, they're bored. They'll pull out of it. Yeah. The answer will be March.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any disagreement there. I got it rated somewhere between little deal or no deal at all, and I lean, as you do, to no deal at all. The defending champions, everybody gets their best shot. When a bad team like Toronto plays them, it's a great opportunity for Toronto. I don't think that these games... Here's what I would say, Mike. 2 things. The Celtics are confident and draw strength from the fact that last year in the playoffs, they went 16-3, which is phenomenal. Yep. It's just fabulous. All they have to do is get into the playoffs. If they were to lose 2 in a row, let's say, to Cleveland and or the Knicks, then I might think there was concern.
That's right.
But not now. Right. And they're 2-1 against those teams at the moment. In December and January, it's meaningless. If it happens in March and April, okay,
that's different.
Then we're talking about something
real.
We're
not there yet.
But they're not, as good as the Celtics are, they're not the 73-win Warriors. They're not. They won 64 last year. and they're on pace for 57 this year. They're not in that league. Let's take a break. Coming up, will the Rams defense have success against the Eagles? We're going to ask Booger McFarland.
We're also going to ask him whether Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen faces the tougher defensive challenge. You know, Tony, I don't have the Celtics winning, and I have no criticism of the Celtics, none. I just think the league is too good right now. There's 3 or 4 other teams that could beat them.
Let's get back into postseason football with our great friend, ESPN, NFL, and college football analyst, Booger McFarland. We'll start with this. Excuse me. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn said, this is a direct quote, "We expect to do a really good job this week against Jaden Daniels," unquote. Is that what you expect?
Well, Tony, at one point in my life, I expected to have hair and a six-pack, but it hadn't quite worked out that way. Sometimes life doesn't work that way. So if you're Aaron Glenn, it's okay to have expectations. I think the reason he's confident is because of that building. That place is going to be rocking. Like, Detroit has been waiting on this a long time, and I realize that the defense has been banged up, but Anzalone is finally back. I think the pressure that the defensive line can create, and more importantly, he may not be able to contain Jaden Daniels, but I think he can contain the weapons around him. Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Zach Ertz, the tight end. The running game with Robinson is really not that volatile or physical of a running game. So I think if you're Aaron Glenn, maybe not try to contain Jaden Daniels because, guys, he's right on the cusp already as a rookie of being in the upper echelon of quarterbacks. And I'm talking about Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jackson. He's not there yet. But Mike and Tony, he is close. And so you got to contain the people around him and maybe not necessarily him.
Well, we give credit on this show, and it's time for us to credit you with seeing the Rams defense coming long before many others. So you saw it coming. What do you think of the Rams defense and what they will be able to do or not against the Eagles?
Yeah, Mike, I saw it coming because I saw a bunch of guys that were young, that were hungry, that were athletic. When you talk about Byron Young, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, I can go on. And it's the cheapest defense in football. Let me repeat that. The cheapest defense in football, so that they're going to be together for a while. But what I saw is a team that is super athletic. And they're going against the Philadelphia Eagle offensive line that they've already seen. The last time they saw him now, Saquon Barkley rushed for 255, and the Eagles as a team had over 300 yards. I think that will benefit the Rams this time. They will know what to do against this huge offensive line because the Eagles' offensive line, like the smallest guys, like 6'5" and 320 pounds. They are big, they are huge, and I think this time, this defensive line will allow the Rams an opportunity to compete at a high level and maybe get this game into the fourth quarter in Philadelphia.
All right, we have to jump to this. We have to jump to Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Let's face it, everybody wants to see this matchup, but the actual matchup, of course, is each of those guys having to go against a specific defense, which causes problems. Who's got the tougher assignment going against the tougher defense in that game?
I think it's got to be Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills against this Baltimore Ravens defense. When you talk about Matabike and Van Noy and the guys that they have at the second level that can come and Humphrey in the slot, they play tenacious, ferocious defense. And if you're Josh Allen, remember, there's no Stephon Diggs. So it's kind of receiver by committee, whoever is open, whether that's Shakur, whether that's Cooper out of the back, Cooper out on the outside. It doesn't matter. They have guys everywhere. And I think if you are Josh Allen, you got to be able to spread it around because this defense is going to be dynamite, Mike.
We will get you out of here on this, and we're going to go to college. College title game is on Monday. Wilbon believes that Ohio State is going to beat Notre Dame with ease. Is that how you see it as well, Booger?
Well, I think of the last time that I can remember, you guys help me out with this, that we thought one team was going to beat the other with ease in college football. Remember the Fiesta Bowl in '86, Penn State against Miami? Miami got off the bus wearing those fatigues. Like, we thought it was going to be a Miami slaughter, and we all know what happened. The ball bounces funny, guys. I realize Ohio State's favorite. Ohio State has the better roster. They have the better team, especially since Notre Dame, if you go back to the opening day roster, they're starting 22. They're probably down 8 or 9 games. So there is no doubt that Notre Dame is outmatched in this game. But toe got to meet leather, and you got to go out and play the football game. I think, Mike, if you're Notre Dame, you got to hope for some defensive turnovers, Tony. You got to hope for a special teams score. You got to hope that this game can somehow get to the fourth quarter. And if they do, then maybe, just maybe, touchdown Jesus and the luck of the Irish will be on Notre Dame's side.
Thank you, Booger, as always.
Thanks,
you.
Booger. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, the conference-leading Cavs and Thunder meet again tonight. What should we expect?
And a few thoughts on the life and times of the late, great Bob Uecker.
So, Booger's got on a shirt from Philadelphia Cricket. I have played that course. Have you ever played that one, Mike?
No.
Philadelphia Cricket?
No.
It's really
no,
nice.
I've not played any place in Philly. I've not played
Really?
golf in Philadelphia. No. No agronomic, none of that. No. Haven't been invited.
Oh, we got it.
You know, they might
I'll
boo
get
me.
somebody to invite you.
You know,
No, I'll
they
get
know what
somebody. Happy time, people. Happy 90th birthday, A.J. Foyt. History lesson, kids. For most of the second half of the 20th century, Foyt was the magic name in IndyCar racing, as Richard Petty was the magic name in NASCAR. Foyt, the son of an auto mechanic, is the only driver to win the Indianapolis 500, the Daytona 500, the 24 Hours of Daytona, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Foyt won the Indy 500 4 times. Nobody has won it 5. Everybody knows a kid in their high school who knew everything there is to know about cars, who knew his way under the hood, and who lived to drive fast. It's a Bruce Springsteen song, it's a Tom Wolfe essay, and it's A.J. Foyt's life. The A.J., by the way, is for Anthony Joseph, the same as Anthony Joseph Reale, who takes the subway in New York and doesn't drive.
I hope Reale knows how to drive. Tony, doesn't this make all of that make A.J. Foyt the GOAT? Isn't he the GOAT? In a sport that has plenty of people you could offer up. There's competition,
Yeah,
but
I think.
wow, that resume it glitters.
Yeah. Happy anniversary, Dallas Cowboys. On this day 53 years ago, the Cowboys won Super Bowl VI, blasting the Miami Dolphins 24-3. Dallas had been in need of a title, having been labeled as chokers after losing a pair of NFL championships to the Packers and then losing Super Bowl V to the Colts. In this game, the Cowboys' doomsday defense held Miami without a touchdown, the only team in the 20th century to accomplish that feat defensively. The Cowboys set Super Bowl records for most rushing yards, 252, and most first downs, 23. The game kicked off at Tulane Stadium in 39-degree weather, which I would love in D.C. now, coldest ever for a Super Bowl. Miami clearly learned a lesson from this game and won 32 of their next 34 games, including 2 straight Super Bowls.
Yeah, Tony, those Super Bowls were sandwiched by those losses to the Cowboys, which you just mentioned, and then later to the Steelers. They couldn't get that third straight one, and that's what the Chiefs are going after and going to find so difficult to get, just like the Dolphins found impossible to get.
A melancholy trails to Bob Uecker. Uecker died this morning just shy of his 91st birthday. As a catcher, he muddled through 6 major league seasons, batting just .200, but played off of those struggles to build a legendary career as a personality. Uecker starred in one of the great sports ads of all time for light beer, in which he believes his comp seats must be in the front row, only to find they're in the furthest corner of the upper deck. Johnny Carson had Uecker on regularly, nicknaming him Mr. Baseball, and those spots showcased Uecker's great ability to make himself the butt of his own jokes. He was non-threatening, open, lovable, and sympathetic, and was still the voice of his beloved Brewers, a job he originally landed in 1971.
Tone, we've lost so many, if not all, the great storytellers. And I know for you, like for me, we go to the ballpark, and nearly as much fun as the game was sitting like over some hot dog, listening to Red Barber, Mel Allen, Ernie Harwell, Jack Buck, Harry Callis, Harry Carey, Vin Scully, and so many more. That's a partial list. But there's such great storytellers around the real national pastime for 100 years. And it's just particularly sad to lose Bob Uecker now to add to that list.
Joe Garagiola was the first person to go from being a bad baseball player into a wonderful presence on the couches like Johnny Carson's and have a career in TV, and Uecker was next. Let's go to the big finish. Jim Harbaugh will have a procedure to address an irregular heartbeat and have a hip replaced. Your thoughts?
Ooh, that's a lot. The hip replacement you can see coming because the way he's moving around or lack thereof, but the heart procedure got to be more serious. Connor McDavid had 2 goals and an assist in the Oilers' 5-3 win over the Wild. Significant?
Yeah, he passed Jari Kurri, and he's now in second place all time as an Oilers scorer behind the great one, who will be tough to catch. Nobody ever has. 17th seed Francis Tiafoe is out of the Australian Open. So is the kid who beat Rublev, Joao Fonseca. The 19-year-old American Lerner Tien beat Medvedev. That's the biggest deal, isn't it?
No, not for me. Tiafoe still not getting over the hump, even though he's right there in the thick of it all the time, every slam it seems, but not finishing. Number 2, Iowa State beat number 9, Kansas by 17. I told you Iowa State was going to win. You impressed?
Yeah, I watched them over the weekend beat Texas Tech too, and I watched last night. They're good. Last one, Cavs at Thunder tonight. Who you got in that one?
No Hartenstein, still no Holmgren. That's a lot of non-7-footers out there against Cleveland size, Tony. Got the Cavaliers winning again against OKC.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time. Happy birthday, Mary Beth Faulkner.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the app or Apple Podcasts. Shout out to the great Allen Iverson, just because.
TI bonus topic.
All right, Wilbon, is Sunday a bigger game for Lamar Jackson or for Josh Allen?
Tony, it's big for both of them. Each one has lost one AFC championship game. But Josh Allen's played better in the playoffs overall, without question. The number of touchdowns produced, like 23 touchdown passes, something like 28 touchdown passes, and then 28 when you talk about passes and rushing. He's played better, but Lamar Jackson with these multiple MVPs and yet one appearance in a title game and a loss that, the pressure, much greater pressure on Lamar Jackson. That could change. If Jackson wins this one, Josh Allen loses this one, it flips maybe for next year. But to me, it's Jackson. He hasn't played well at all. And, Tony, I know, to me, if he cuts loose and plays like he just did against the Steelers and says to hell with any convention and game plans and Todd Monken and any of that stuff, and he and Derrick Henry put pedal to metal, they're going to win this game and they're going to be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't want to refute what you're saying, but to me, this is a complete push, and I'll tell you why. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are great quarterbacks. Great quarterbacks are ultimately defined by Super Bowls. Maybe you don't have to win a bunch of them. Maybe you don't even have to win any, but you have to get to them. You have to get to them if you are a great quarterback. And neither has gotten there. Both have had the same one opportunity in an AFC championship game and failed. And while you might be right that Josh Allen's playoff performances are better than Lamar Jackson's to this point, I just think they will be looked at as disappointments if they don't get to the Super Bowl. So to me, they're on the same line for this game. They're on the same line for this one.
Tony, I totally get arguing for that. And by the way, no, you don't have to win a bunch. Because Aaron Rodgers sure as hell hasn't won a bunch. And people walk around talking about he's the greatest quarterback of all time. You say, please shut up. Stop with that nonsense. Yes, you got to be great to even get to one. And we can stop it there. But these guys haven't gotten to even that one yet. Haven't gotten to one to lose it yet. So they're trying, but I think it's on Jackson this time around. We'll see. That's it. We're done. Back to you.